Peaky Blinders fan is Maxim Matlakov. So Abdusattorov with the white pieces. He is the world rapid champion. As mentioned, Matlakov, he went through the gauntlet with the black pieces every single time and made his way to a KO championship himself. So I'm having a hard time predicting this one. I'll go with Nodirbek. I think his opening preparation has been stellar, particularly for the time control. But I just don't want to overlook Matlakov as really a strong foe.
Yeah, I think, I mean, both players in the particular in the R.C.C have, I feel, raised their level. Like I seem to see them in the knockouts all the time. So just, yeah, really looking forward. And so going to be an open game.
Okay, well, here we see C4, and you said open game, and we might get some kind of Slav and closed position, depending on how Matlakov plays this. Oh, we're going to exchange Slav. So, okay, we'll get an open game.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Nodirbek approaches this, because I think he prefers more of the dynamics like most young players do. So we'll see how he plays these kinds of positions.
Well, it starts with bishop e2, and that means there's no bishop g4 pin. Funny business over here. Oftentimes, white tries to hop this knight into e5. You can think about bringing your queen to b3, if I'm not mistaken, because knight a5 is queen a4 check.
He does it, yeah. So this move usually provokes rook a7, which is like, oh, but okay, this is the more, this is a modern idea from black, which is to sacrifice the b pawn, but you get this kind of end game where you win that bishop, and then you try and attack b2, which is not the easiest pawn to defend.
Right, just showing how that happens, where white is up a pawn, but as you point out, rook b8 going after the b file, where white can castle queenside, but you may protect a pawn and then lose your king, because that looks like a pretty blistering attack in the work. So instead, we see bishop g5 after a little bit of a think, and then queen c7 as the response. So Jeffrey, that little think there, I wonder if Nodirbek is now out of his book, or if he just was a little bit surprised by knight h5. How do you assess that moment?
I believe he didn't know it, because this is a position that I know myself, mainly because I played it as white against Robson. Mm-hmm. But normally bishop e5 is more critical, I would say, provoking f6 and bishop g3. So bishop g5, it's not the most testing line, I think.
Okay, and now the follow-up from Nodirbek has not been played, so you're clearly correct that he is out of his book, but that doesn't mean he's out of his element, and he moves knight to d2, hitting this knight on h5. Jeffrey, would you retreat the knight? Would you play h6? Because sometimes you can just attack a different piece. Would you play bishop g6, something like that? What's your preference?
Yeah, I look for either h6 or bishop g6. I'm not too enthusiastic about bringing the knight back, because I like it on h5, where it covers the f4 and g3 squares, and I can potentially win white's bishop by going h6 g5. So the question for me is this position, like after h6 bishop h4 g5, what is this? Like bishop h5 gh, is that a good transition for black? What do you think?
We see this in so many openings, right? Where this is a possibility. And I always struggle to know, because I like the bishop pair from black's perspective. Even the semi-open G file looks nice, but then these pawns are kind of iffy, and it says it's completely even, zeros. So it just goes to show that even the engine is not certain who should stand better. And knight d2, Matlakov hasn't moved Jeffrey. I think he will play h6 and g5, but he's just trying to make sure that as he proceeds into that variation, he knows that he is doing okay.
Yeah, so I actually don't like bishop g6 now, because then Nodirbek, he could do a vidit with g4 h4. And this expansion kind of looks attractive to me with bishop f4 coming with tempo. So now I'd be more inclined to actually enter this h6 g5 position.
Is that what we call it now? This is the vidit from now on?
Okay, many people have done similar, but sure, because of the last game, let's go with the vidit.
And Jeffrey Jung doth proclaim that on this day that g4 h4 pawn pushes are now known as the vidit.
So yeah, still thinking. Okay, there is knight of 6-2, which is like the most conservative. That stops the g4 ideas. But yeah, I feel like in the spirit is h6 g5, grab the bishop.
The problem with knight f6 is if I take it, I could even strike with e4 and just sort of break the whole position open, and that's starting to look a little sketchy for black.
That is interesting. You mean right away, like you take e4?
Yeah.
Not sure, but yeah, Matlakov certainly contemplating something, quite a big thing here.
Oh, people often ask, how do you define a critical moment? This is a great example of one, because there are several different ideas that black can go. If knight f6, you get the double pawns, but the bishop pair. If you play h6, you know that you're playing g5 next. You're going to get the bishop pair, but double isolated pawns in the h file. If you play bishop to g6, are we going to see g4, h4, and how bad is that for black? So there are several different options here for Matlakov, and they have very different consequences. So I think he's doing a great job of thinking here, but unfortunately, he spent a ton of time.
Yeah, so finally he opts for bishop g6, and there you go. Here's the vidit.
Okay, step one of the vidit. If h4, maybe black has h5?
Yeah, I'm wondering if bishop f4, I think Matlakov has bishop d6 in mind. So he doesn't want to waste time moving the queen. He'll give b7 up, because now that white kind of made it clear that he's leaving the king in the middle, then this kind of thing like the b file opening is going to be in black's favor. So h4 comes in one go. And as you mentioned, h5 could lead to some really interesting play.
Yeah, h5 there. You could play the calmer h6, but that doesn't create tension in the position. And he plays h5. So one thing to consider is if we trade now and then trade again, black will end up with a rook on h5, an isolated but passed pawn on h4, and black has double pawns but are harder to attack. So I'm trying to figure out if that sequence of moves were to occur, is black happy about that? I would imagine the answer should objectively be yes in the short term, but maybe in the long term, there's some kind of issue.
Right, that is a tricky position to evaluate. The other alternative to go bishop f4 and g5 to lock it up, and then, yeah, it's all really difficult to evaluate. So again, bishop f4, I like bishop d6 here by black to not, don't move the queen, I think, because I'm not worried about queen takes b7 at all. Okay,
right.
g5, so knight d7, I assume.
You could, I guess, go into g4, but knight d7 is autopilot for me.
Yeah, so the big question about this position is where do you put white's king? I'm thinking to keep following the footsteps of vidit and play something like f4 king f2. So
we've expanded the definition of what it means to vidit. So here, you just want to bring your king there. I mean, that makes sense because you're locking up the position, but for how long, Jeffrey? After knight d7, and if you play f4, can't black at some point strike with f6?
Yeah, but then you have to worry about the g file. Like if I'm in time to go knight f3, rook g1, that's not going to be in your favor.
Fair point. That it may look like you're going for an attack, but in fact, you're creating some loose pieces and squares along the G file. So Matlakov, once again, this is an important moment. He could go forward with knight to G4. That often results in your knight being trapped, but there is no F3 because that's not E3, but that is the E3 pawn would be hanging, not to mention the queen would try to jump to G3. So will Matlakov just play the calm knight D7? Will he play the more adventurous knight G4? He is using his time and now down 3+ minutes on the clock.
Yeah, I'm trying to calculate knight G4, knight F1, and black needs to find a move because F3 is probably threatened. He did play it, right?
He did. But F3, Jeffrey, it may not even be that big of a threat because let's go knight F1. I'm going to castle just to force this variation. After knight E3, knight takes E3. I was already looking queen G3 check, knight takes D4. I feel like white's position is falling apart.
Yeah, excellent point. Maybe white has to play one more move to prepare that idea, but then your idea F6 could come into play. So you're right. Maybe concretely knight G4 works.
And he plays knight F1. So step one of this possible plan. And after castle's kingside, let's not forget that white can just take this and play H5. So it's not that I have to trap the knight. Maybe it's worth exploring the capture and can I mount an attack from there?
Yeah, that makes sense because if you can't trap this knight, it's going to be a very powerful piece to deal with. F6 looks like a serious threat. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was trying to make a move to go F3, but it doesn't seem like I have any time for that. So yeah, now I'm looking into your suggestion, bishop G4, H5, H6. How dangerous is that?
Oh, he's looking still for F3. He's saying, I'm going to trap your knight. And is it even a threat? I'm not sure. Can we play F6? Can we sacrifice a pawn with E5? I don't think E5 looks very good. So I'm going to
that. What if F6? This is very tempting. So if F3, yeah. Oh.
Can I then take? That's what I'm wondering now.
Oh, you want to take an H5. Aha, okay.
I've sort of induced a weakness from you in the light square. So F6, I guess F3 needs to be considered, but I'm just trying to play it a little safer and go like this. And maybe I can even thrust that pawn all the way to G6 and your king could be in huge danger.
Yeah, very interesting concept. Although I also noticed that your queen on B3 is lacking squares. So if I go B5 next, I'm threatening knight A5. Maybe I start on the other side of the board.
You are a brilliant man. B5 right now, F3 traps the knight. But as you're pointing out, that this queen could be in big trouble.
Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking about it right here because still knight A5, queen A3, right? It's not the end of the world for white.
I don't know. Oh, because my knight's hanging on A5.
But there could be... No, I still think F6 is the natural way because obviously you just worry about F3. You want to make sure you're not losing your knight. So I know that after F6, F3, knight E3, that must be sufficient compensation. So that's why I wanted to go in this direction.
And you're just going to take here and then go like check and...
Yeah, because now I get the rook involved. I just feel like, okay, it's two pawns. My feeling is that, especially in rapid, I like black here.
But in chess, aren't we supposed to feel less and calculate more? Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Definitely not in rapid, but okay. Speaking personally, I'm a very intuitive player. Sometimes that backfires, but I stick to my guns. So I love just playing by instinct.
And I'm guessing you don't love being down 4.5 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, truly the position is sharp, but at the same time, you have to understand there are big decisions coming down the road. He does opt for rook C8. So an interesting approach here by Matlakov.
So F3 presumably is out of the question now because after F3, you can I do this knight takes E3 thing? I guess he's going to go B5 and trap the queen. Is like, I think it's
whoa. That's a little bit too deep, no? Rook C8 and B5.
But otherwise, what was the point of rook C8?
That's a good question. I was trying to figure it out myself, but if it really is connected with B5, that's impressive.
Maybe it's connected with knight B4 as well, or something like that.
Maybe, but yes, Nodirbek, he saw what was coming, so he starts with A3, very useful move.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, F3 is still on the table. Like, I actually like refraining from this from a clock perspective, because as long as Matlakov has to think, does F3 trap my knight, and am I getting enough compensation for the sacrificed knight? Let's say once again, drawing the wrong square, knight takes E3. Like, am I getting enough for it? Matlakov's going to burn his remaining time.
it is so annoying that you have to invest at least 10 seconds every single move to check. Make sure you're not losing that knight.
I'm taking this. I think from the pragmatic approach is taking, playing h5, playing g6, because the position remains closed. Black's king could be endangered later. I understand I'm giving away my very important light squared bishop, especially if this knight comes around to c4, but I like the prospects that white has.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think f3 knight e3 is going to end well for black, at least from a practical standpoint. So I would do the same take. And I'm wondering, can you even consider h5, h6?
Yes.
Try and open up the h file.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I just said h5, g6 because it looked cool, but I think what you're saying, why just throw that pawn forward all the way and create problems for the black king. So Nodirbek, he's thinking, I can't imagine f3. I mean, what you were just saying before is taking and everything's open and white's king will never, ever find shelter. Doesn't seem like a wise decision.
Yeah, the one thing Nodirbek always has to take into account is this move knight a5, because connected with knight coming to c4, all of black's pieces are in the position where it could become very serious.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are sacrifices galore. And Nodirbek, he's still, after this about 2-minute thing, he's still up 3 minutes on the clock. And he's calculating the differences between here. What else is even a candidate move?
Yeah, I'm calculating this f3 still. I think it must only be f3 that he's thinking about. This f3, knight e3, knight e3, probably queen g3, most natural. And then maybe he's trying to make, I don't actually know where you go with the king here.
So bad, because if you go king d2, you even drop the d4 pawn as well. If you go to f1, then you're walking right into the f file and sacrifices for checkmate.
Yeah, feels like you shouldn't explore down this tumultuous path too much.
Well, if we can eliminate that, is there another move that he's thinking of besides bishop takes g4? You're f takes g5, knight takes f2, obvious follow-ups. So I'm just taking. I'm out of options.
Me too. Yeah, I don't think there's another move besides those two. So it may be that he doesn't like bishop g4 either, because what I mentioned, that bishop on e2, it covers c4. Once it leaves, knight f5 c4, it could be a devastating threat almost. So if white's not in time with his own kingside play, then it might be bad. So it does. I understand why he's investing a lot of time here.
Yeah, because this bishop will slide forward to f5 after bishop takes, and pawn h5. The bishop will have to slide forward because you don't want to get very passive. And then knight a5 is a really, really, really annoying plan, as you've pointed out. So I think you just have to go for it because I really just don't like any other move for white. It's very clear that black is the one trying to open things up, and he, at long last, goes for it.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what is going on after bishop f5 h6, because I was calculating while Nodirbek was in the tank. H6, knight a5. Oh, but he does go g6, which I thought it was too slow, because what if knight a5 here?
Knight a5, can he? So the queen's being traded doesn't mean that I can't try to attack you later. So I was wondering if queen b4 is an option, but that looks bad. You just trade queens and there's no checkmate going to happen because I can never play h6 without dropping g6.
Yeah, it felt, at least this position started to feel easier for black. He does offer the endgame, but after knight c4, does he want? But knight a4, there's bishop c2, which is really annoying.
Does he want knight g3? And because this bishop is loose, if knight takes b2, is knight takes d5?
Oh, this idea. Yeah, maybe that works actually. Didn't see it. It's
a wild attempt, but after knight g3, what other move do you have?
Yeah, I think that's actually, he needs to find it, because if not knight g3, I don't see a good way to stop knight b2.
Right, and b3, they just knight b2 anyway, so he plays it.
He finds it. Nice. Okay. So knight b2, knight f. Wait, you take on f5 or d5 first?
I haven't decided. I'll let you do that for me.
I think, so the problem with knight f5 is maybe rook c3.
But it's almost checkmate. Right?
It is on. Wait, is that mate actually?
Here, let's see.
Show that. I think that's mate.
Yeah, so we're saying 97 check here in h6. We want to take and play rook h7 checkmate. Yeah, that's mate.
Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah.
So that's not going to happen.
So then you'd have to take and allow knight d5.
Yeah, but this is
that. Yeah, that's not something I want to allow. So Matlakov, again, he's trying to find another move, but he does go for this.
Wait, then he's just okay. So we'll see how this game concludes, but this looks like a problem.
Yeah, because wait, if you take on d1, is it coming anyway?
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, Jeffrey, the pawn f6 and f5 means your king can never try to run away to f6.
Yeah, that might. I mean, that's just game over. Yeah, so he cannot allow knight e7.
But if you just move your rook, then I move my rook, and then I'm going to play h6 anyway. And
yeah, wow, this is a big turn of events. Wait, but if you go back and move, like, what was maybe knight d6 instead? Knight d6, like instead of allowing knight f5. So you had to keep the structure intact.
Yes, knight d6 to defend the bishop looks much better, but easy to say. Oh gosh.
Oh, and this. Oh no.
Oh gosh, it's checkmate right there. Oh, you can't stop me from promoting. Let's say you move the rook out of the way. I take, and then I have.
Oh, he allows
mate. And Matlakov just shakes his head, and he allows a checkmate. So that's being a good sport about it in the end. But just to show, if you try to make room for your king on the f8 square, let's say you move your rook here after pawn takes, king takes. Well, I checkmate you this way with rook f7, which is another nasty checkmate. And if you made a little bit more space with rook d8, then after this trade, I forget about checkmate. Although actually, I may just checkmate this way too.
This is just it's just brutal, honestly.
I was just going to push my pawn, right? I was going to get a new queen because that also wins. But after knight takes f5, king g8 to stop the checkmate. Well, I can go like this, or I can probably move my knight back and checkmate that way, or move my pawn. Everything's checkmate.
Yeah, it's many riches here.
Nodirbek Abdusattorov. He is our fourth and final semifinalist. And Jeffrey, no